He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize a man staring back. Not because he'd aged, not because he'd changed, but because his mind told him a different story. To everyone else, Daniel was a 42-year-old accountant from Boston. But ask him, he'd tell you he was once a war journalist in Syria. Ask him about his childhood. I grew up in Cairo, he'd say. His family? They died in a bombing when I was 16. Problem is, none of it was true. Not the country, not the war, not the trauma. But to Daniel, it was more real than reality itself. This isn't about lying. This is about a man who rewrote his memories and believed every word. And what triggered it might be the same thing that's reshaping your past right now. Daniel Grant wasn't always like this. He used to be ordinary, 42 years old, lived in a small apartment in Boston's North End, worked accounts for a mid-sized marketing firm, had a routine, coffee at 7, train at 8:15, home by 6. Everything made sense until it didn't. It started with little things. He forgot where he parked, then swore he owned a red Honda when he'd always driven a gray Toyota. He'd tell co-workers stories about his childhood in Cairo, about how he learned Arabic before English, except he'd never left Massachusetts. At first, people laughed it off. Classic Dan, always messing around. But he wasn't joking. He told those stories with tears in his eyes. He believed them. Then came the journal, pages and pages of his past. Photos altered, documents forged but convincingly. A childhood friend named Kareem, a sister named Layla, a cat called Zuzu that supposedly died in a bombing. There were drawings, maps, memories. They weren't fantasies. They were his reality. His landlord once found him sitting in the stairwell, muttering in broken Arabic, clutching a faded photograph. It wasn't him in the picture, but he swore it was. His boss asked him to take time off. Daniel agreed, said he needed to travel back to Syria, to finish the story. But he'd never been to Syria. He didn't even have a passport. His parents, still alive in Maine, called in panic. "We don't know what's happening," his mother said. He says we're dead, that we died in 96. Doctors thought it was trauma-induced delusion, but Daniel hadn't experienced any trauma. Not recently. Not that anyone knew of. Then someone suggested therapy. And this is where everything began to collapse. Not because therapy failed, but because Daniel didn't go to heal. He went to remember what wasn't real. And something helped him do just that. The first real shift happened during his 4th therapy session. Daniel walked in smiling. Relaxed, he said, "It's all coming back now." Dr. Ira looked surprised. She hadn't done anything yet, just asked questions. But Daniel said he remembered everything. The war, the desert, his sister screams, a long-lost love, a prison escape. None of it had ever happened. At home, Daniel began isolating. He stopped answering his parents' calls, told co-workers he was changing careers, but didn't say to what. His apartment filled with artifacts, Middle Eastern rugs, oil lanterns, Arabic calligraphy he couldn't read. He started dressing differently, long tunics, leather sandals. He claimed he was getting back to his roots. But Daniel was Irish-American, Boston born and raised. His voice changed, too, slower, more deliberate. He began sprinkling Arabic words into conversations, even when no one understood. One night, he showed up at the emergency room. He thought someone had followed him. He said a black car kept circling his building. When doctors asked who he was afraid of, he whispered, "The ones who erased me." The doctors found no sign of delusion, no schizophrenia, no drugs in his system, but his belief was unshakable. He posted on forums, Reddit threads, YouTube comments, claiming he was part of a memory study gone wrong, that his past had been rewritten, that he once had a family in Aleppo, that someone somewhere had taken it away. People mocked him. Some believed him. Others offered to help him remember more. He started live streaming, walking around with a GoPro, searching for proof, he said. Once, he stood in front of a war memorial and cried. "I fought here," he told strangers. The unraveling wasn't chaotic. It was quiet, controlled. Every move felt guided. He kept a notebook. Memories recovered. Each page was a mix of real people and invented ones. A childhood friend who never existed. A teacher with a name too perfect, Mr. Hakeem Justice. His neighbors began avoiding him, but Daniel didn't notice. He was too busy chasing ghosts. And somehow, he looked peaceful, like a man finally at home in his mind. But what happens when that home isn't real? It started with a whistleblower, a quiet email, anonymous, subject line, "Your therapist isn't who he says he is." Daniel thought it was spam. He deleted it, but the next day, It came again. Same words. No sender. Curious. He clicked. It opened a document. Scans of medical records. But not his. Dozens of names. All patients of Dr. Ira Falden. All listed as participants in something called Project Reverie. Cognitive Identity Restructuring Protocol. Government funded. Private lab, classified data streams. Daniel's hand shook. He printed every page, laid them out across his apartment floor. Some pages were redacted. Others had full transcripts. One read, subject believes new identity is self-generated. No resistance. Another, language and wardrobe adoption complete. Memory contamination successful. He ran to his bathroom mirror, looked at himself, his eyes, his posture. Was it all fake? At the next session, Daniel confronted her, showed her the files. Her smile didn't fade. Instead, she leaned in and whispered, "Why do you think you found those documents?" His throat tightened. "Because someone wanted me to know." She nodded. "Or someone wanted you to believe it." Pause. "You're not the first, Daniel, but you're the most promising." She reached into her drawer, pulled out a file folder, his face, his name, but next to it, a code, SUBJR6. He wasn't a patient. He was an experiment. Every memory recovered was a script, planted, tested, refined. His therapist? Not a therapist at all, but a cognitive engineer. The sessions? Not therapy, conditioning. Daniel didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just stared and finally asked, "Who was I before you made me?" Daniel stopped going to sessions, stopped answering calls, stopped sleeping. The documents haunted him. He pinned them to his wall, connected them with red string, like some crime board cliche. But it didn't feel paranoid. It felt necessary. He found videos of himself, old vlogs, birthday clips, a voice slightly different, laugh more honest. He didn't recognize it. In one, he was arguing with a friend, confident, stubborn. He said, "I know who I am. Don't try to change me." The irony cut deep. Now, he barely raised his voice. He wore colors he once hated. He drank oat milk. He hated oat milk. Every part of his personality. Was it or cure? He Googled himself. No record before 5 years ago. No school photos. No medical records. His parents had passed. His sister stopped talking to him 2 years back. He didn't even remember why. He called her. No answer. He messaged his old best friend. "Hey, can you tell me who I was?" They replied, "That's a weird question." "You okay?" Daniel stared at the screen. Was he okay? He started journaling, trying to track what felt real. But every entry contradicted the last. One day, he hated Dr. Falden. The next, he missed her calm voice. Some days he believed everything. Other days, he wondered if he made it all up. Maybe the email was fake. Maybe the file was a dream. Maybe he was the manipulator, rewriting his own memories to protect from some deeper truth. One night, he stood in front of the mirror, taped a note to it. "Who are you?" and just stared, waiting for the reflection to blink first. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Memory is fragile. It's not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you're not remembering the event. You're remembering the last time you remembered it. A copy of a copy. Blurred each time by emotion, bias, suggestion. Now imagine someone you trust, like a therapist, begins subtly suggesting new narratives. Are you sure your parents supported you? You've always been anxious. You just didn't notice before. That dream you had, maybe it was a memory. They don't force ideas. They plant seeds and wait. Over time, your brain tries to resolve the mismatch between what you felt and what they framed. This is called memory reconsolidation, a real documented process where old memories are modified and rewritten during recall. And then there's source amnesia. You forget where you heard something, but remember the content. So when Dr. Falden said, "Maybe you've always hated crowds," Daniel forgot the source and believed the story. Add in repetition over weeks, months, years, and a new identity takes root. Now layer on trust, calm tone, warm eye contact, a structured room with soft light, and a healing voice that always says the right thing. It feels safe, so your defenses drop, and that's when the rewiring begins. Daniel's story isn't science fiction, it's science. This happens in toxic relationships, in cults, in abusive families, even in corporate coaching and healing spaces. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's unintentional, but the result is the same. You wake up one day and don't recognize the thoughts in your head. It started with a hesitation. Daniel was journaling one night and he wrote, "I've always hated parties." Then paused, stared at the sentence. Something about it felt wrong. Had he? He remembered laughter, college parties, smiles, then silence. Memories flashed like a shattered mirror. Were they real or just old stories someone told him enough times that he believed them? He went back through old emails, found a photo of himself at a concert, front row, smiling. That wasn't the man he knew now. He felt panic. Who am I really? He stopped stopped going to therapy, cut contact with Dr. Falden, but the man still lived in his head, in phrases, in pauses, in doubts. Daniel didn't trust himself anymore. He second-guessed everything, what he liked, what he feared, what he remembered. He started therapy again, this time with someone new, not to fix his problems, but to untangle the ones he didn't know were planted. It wasn't instant. It wasn't clean. Some memories never came back. Others stayed warped. But Daniel began to ask better questions. Is this memory mine, or was it given? Do I really believe this, or was I trained to? He found new truths, tiny moments of clarity, and slowly, painfully, he began to write a new story, his own story, one that didn't begin with a lie. What if your favorite memory wasn't yours? What if the stories you tell yourself about who you are, what you fear, what you want, were all shaped by someone else's voice? That's the thing about psychological manipulation. It's not loud. It's not violent. It doesn't steal your body. It steals your story. And the scariest part, you don't notice until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize who's staring back. This isn't just about Daniel. This happens in relationships, in families, in workplaces, in cults, in conversations that feel supportive but silence you quietly. So ask yourself right now, whose beliefs live in your head rent-free? Who taught you how to feel shame? What memory do you hold? That doesn't feel like it belongs. You deserve to know your own mind, to trust your own voice, to choose your own story. And if you've ever been manipulated, if you're questioning your past, your memories, your identity, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You're waking up. Drop a comment. What helped you reclaim your truth? Your story might be the mirror someone else needs. Subscribe. We're diving deeper into the mind, manipulation, and freedom, one story at a time. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's next, and share this video with someone who might need to hear this, because your story should never belong to anyone else.